In the late 19th century, a group of people called Zionists sought to make a homeland for Jews. They wanted it in Ottoman-controlled Palestine. They believed that this area roughly matched the land of Israel in Jewish tradition. In 1917, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration. It supported the idea of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This led to an influx of Jewish immigrants to the region. After World War II and the Holocaust, the world pushed for a Jewish state in Palestine. This led to the establishment of Israel in 1948, but this led to wars. It displaced many Palestinians who became refugees. This sparked a decades-long conflict between Israel and Palestine. The Palestinians seek to make their state part of historic Palestine. But Israeli settlements in the West Bank are a major obstacle. The status of Jerusalem, the fate of Palestinian refugees is also a big obstacle. Many peace negotiations have happened, but the parties involved have not yet reached a long-term peace agreement. Before World War I, the Middle East was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, which included Ottoman Syria. The south of Ottoman Syria is now known as Palestine. The Mutasari fate of Jerusalem, Syria Vilayet, and Beirut Vilayet divided it. The region was mostly inhabited by Arab Muslims, farmers, and Bedouins. Some Christians, mostly Arabs, also lived there. Druze, Circassians, and Jews, mostly Sephardic, were also part of the population. At that time, most Jews lived outside Palestine. They lived mainly in Eastern and Central Europe. They also lived in the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and the Americas. The conflict's roots go back to the late 19th century. Then, national movements like Zionism and Arab nationalism were on the rise. Jews in Europe and the Middle East talked more about moving to Israel. They planned to re-establish the Jewish nation. It had been part of Jewish thought for over 1,000 years. This was largely to escape widespread persecution and anti-Semitism in Russia and Europe. The Zionist movement aimed to create a homeland for the Jewish people. It began as a political movement in 1897. They faced many obstacles. But the people of Israel and Palestine hope and work for peace in their long conflict. The Zionist movement called for a nation-state for the Jewish people in Palestine. It would be a haven for the world's Jews and give them the right to self-determination. Zionists increasingly held this. They thought the state should be in their historic homeland, the land of Israel. The World Zionist Organization and the Jewish National Fund encouraged immigration. They also funded land purchases. This was under Ottoman and British rule in Palestine. Arab and Syrian nationalism were the main forces in the area. There was also loyalty to the Ottoman state. Benny Morris says the first violence was between Arabs and Jews in Palestine. They were in Safed. They happened during a wedding in December 1882. An Arab man died in an accidental shooting by a Jewish guard of the Rosh Pinna. In response, about 200 Arabs threw stones and vandalized the Jewish settlement. Another incident happened in Petah Tikva. In early 1886, Jewish settlers demanded their tenants leave disputed land. They then started encroaching on it. On March 28th, Yehudia Arabs attacked and robbed a Jewish settler, crossing this land of his horse. The settlers confiscated 9 mules found grazing in their fields. It is not clear which incident came first and which was the retaliation. The Jewish settlers refused to return the mules, a decision viewed as a provocation. The next day, most of the settlement's men were away. 50 or 60 Arab villagers attacked Petah Tikva. They vandalized houses and fields and carried off much of the livestock. 4 Jews were injured, and a 5th, an older woman with a heart condition, died 4 days later. By 1908, Arabs had killed 13 Jews. 4 of the killings were in what Benny Morris calls nationalist circumstances. The others were during robberies and other crimes. Over the next 5 years, Arabs killed 12 Jewish settlement guards. Settlers began to speak more of Arab hatred and nationalism. They said these were behind the increasing depredations, not mere banditry. Arab leaders in Palestine saw Zionist ambitions as a growing threat. Jews upset Arab owners by buying land for settlements. This led to the eviction of the fellahin, who were tenant farmers. It all worsened the tension and made Arabs feel dispossessed of their lands. After local complaints about rising immigration, officials used Ottoman land purchase rules. Ottoman policymakers feared rising Russian and European influence. This was in the late 19th century. This was due to a big wave of immigration from the Russian Empire. The Ottomans feared the new immigrants' loyalty. It was not due to their Jewishness, but to their loyalty to Russia, their home country. Russia and the Ottoman Empire had a long history of conflicts. Immigrant loyalty to Russia might undermine Turkish control in Palestine. The example created this worry. The end of Ottoman authority in the Balkans revealed the example. Locals saw European immigration as a threat to the region's culture. The pogroms in Russia and anti-immigrant laws in Europe were key. They caused the first and second aliyahs of Jewish immigrants to Palestine. The scale of Zionist efforts became clear. Arabs in Palestine protested Jewish land grabs. As a result, in 1892, the Ottoman authorities banned land sales to foreigners. By 1914, the Jewish population in Palestine had risen to over 60,000. Around 33,000 of these were recent settlers. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire joined forces with Germany as part of a mutual defense treaty. The alliance posed a threat to Britain and France. They sought to free Palestine from the Ottomans. At the time, new populations of both Jewish and Arab people were in Palestine. They supported the UK, France, and Russia in their efforts. In 1915, someone made the McMahon-Hussein Correspondence. Arab leaders agreed to revolt against the Ottomans. They sought control of lands the Ottomans ruled. But things were about to get more complicated. In 1917, someone proposed the Balfour Declaration. It aimed to support the creation in Palestine of a home for the Jewish people. It also aimed to ensure that it would not harm the rights of non-Jewish communities. Jewish nationalists saw this as positive. But it worried Arabs in Palestine. Later that year, the Anglo-French Sykes-Picot Agreement gave the area to the British. It included present-day Jordan, Israel, the Palestinian territories, and Iraq. In 1917, the British defeated Ottoman Turkish forces. They occupied the Palestine region and ran its military for the rest of the war. Finally, on January 3, 1919, Chaim Weizmann and King Faisal I of Iraq signed the Faisal-Weizmann Agreement. Weizmann later became the president of the World Zionist Organization. He provisionally accepted the Balfour Declaration. But he did so only if Britain kept its wartime promises. These promises said that Palestine would be part of the area of Arab independence. The 1919 Paris Peace Conference and Treaty of Versailles saw Turkey lose its Middle East empire. This time was a big turning point in history. The situation in Palestine is complex today, but this story shows how World War I shaped the region's modern history. The actions of different countries were a big part of it. After the First World War, the Allies dissolved the Ottoman Empire. The Allied Supreme Council met at San Remo in April 1920. They granted Britain the mandates for Palestine and Transjordan. These territories include present-day Israel, Jordan, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. The Council endorsed the terms of the Balfour Declaration. Both Zionist and Arab reps attended the conference. They signed an agreement to work together. But the agreement was never implemented. The borders and terms of the mandate were not finalized until September 1922. Article 25 of the mandate said the eastern area did not have to follow all parts of the mandate. At the time, people knew it as Transjordan or Transjordania. This included the rules about a Jewish national home. The British used this as one reason to create an Arab state. They obeyed the mandate. They saw it as keeping the promises in the Hussein-McMahon Correspondence. On April 11, 1921, the British gave control of the east of the British Mandate to the Hashemite Arab dynasty. They were from the Hejaz region, which is in present-day Saudi Arabia. On May 15, 1923, they recognized it as an autonomous state. This ended Jewish hopes for that part of Mandatory Palestine. The mandate over Transjordan ended on May 22, 1946. Then, the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, later Jordan, gained independence. It emerged in reaction to the Zionist movement and Jewish settlement in Palestine. It also came from a desire for self-determination by the Arab population in the region. Jewish immigration to Palestine grew a lot during the British Mandate. This was mainly due to rising anti-Semitism in Europe. From 1919 to 1926, 90,000 immigrants arrived in Palestine due to anti-Semitic events. The pogroms in Ukraine, which killed 100,000 Jews, included these. Some immigrants settled in Jewish communities. The communities were on land bought legally by Zionist agencies from absent landlords. In some cases, absent landlords sold a lot of land. This replaced tenant farmers. European Jewish settlers replaced them. This caused Palestinian Arabs to feel dispossessed. Jewish immigration to Palestine surged after the rise of the Nazis in Germany. After that, the Jewish population in Palestine doubled. Don't forget to join us this Friday. You'll get to learn more about the fascinating history of Israel and Palestine in part 2 of our series. See you then.